I'm not a data-driven person, but in the last couple of days, I have done the most important deep dive I've ever done into the Stripe data in our business. For those of you who don't know, my name is Kath. I run a business called Kind Copy, and we deal with service-based businesses who need copywriting and marketing support. But all of our payments are processed digitally, right? Almost everything goes through Stripe. A couple of odd little transactions go straight to bank, but it means that we've got a ton of data. Unfortunately, I can't bring myself to look at spreadsheets on account of the numbers move around, and it makes me feel sick. Actually makes me feel a little bit seasick to look at a spreadsheet. So all of this data was just sat there, and I was making decisions from a perspective of, here's what I feel is happening in the business. Here's what feels the most profitable. Here's what feels like a pattern that I'm trying to replicate, right? And the interesting thing about this is that when I was able to download all of the transactions on Stripe, I gave it to ChatGPT and we worked on it together, I was able to find so many things that I had no idea about, that I was completely wrong about, and I was trying to base my planning for Q4 this year and 2026 around gut feeling, which in some instances was actually wrong. And in some instances was not wrong, right? Now, this conversation, as you can see from the side here, is an incredibly long chat where I gave it a bunch of monthly recurring revenue data, I gave it a bunch of subscription data, and I gave it a bunch of transaction data that was just payments. In the end, of those three things I exported, it was the transaction data that was the most valuable. And what we were able to do when I looked under the hood is that I was able to look for... So here's where it started. Number one, I thought some of these services we offer pay us significantly more, like 5, sometimes 20 times more than other services. But they're also considerably more work to fulfill. And that wasn't just in terms of... I'm not talking about acquisition costs either, because I almost never run ads. So when we're talking about cost, I'm talking about the human cost of actually fulfilling it. Now, some of my services are actually me sitting here at my desk writing things from scratch. And some of them are me writing things from scratch and selling them to a bunch of people. So the best ones of all are when my team writes it from scratch and then we sell it to a bunch of people. They're priced accordingly. And as a result, some of the services that we offer are very, very expensive in terms of my time. So when I'm working intensely with one client, it might take up an entire day, and that's time I can't spend in client acquisition or doing anything else. So that's where it started from. I also started to suspect that some of our clients don't really ascend in the way that they used to. So they don't buy a low ticket product and then go on to buy higher ticket products. That's something that I believed. That was wrong. That was completely wrong. I also believed that the best way to run a model like ours was through a subscription-based service where people paid a monthly fee and they had some degree of access to me and some degree of access to the copy and marketing that we provide. I thought the best way to do that would be through subscriptions, because once you've acquired the customer, they stay for a long enough time. And I've noticed from the data that that isn't necessarily true. However, the data also skews. Let me give you a bit of a walkthrough. I'm actually so excited about this whole thing. So the first thing that I learned, and I was already suspecting, was that not all revenue is created equal. A pound from one service isn't the same as a pound from another service. And we've got a number of services, some of which are like you buy this product and you pay for it one time and that's all you pay. I've got services that are like you pay me $5,000 a month and you can have whatever you need from me. And that's super, super labor intensive. And so when you work out the time cost and who was fulfilling it, not all services are equally weighted in terms of how much they make. So we had one service, for example, called the Dirty Dozen, which brought us approximately £500,000 since it's been running. We have another service which costs 3 to 5 times as much, which has only been running for 1 year, and has brought us £250,000, roughly. I thought in my mind, because the bottomless brunch, the completely immersive service where you get as much as you want, because it's more expensive, it would be a more profitable service. But in practice, that isn't the case. It's extremely hard to delegate that service off. It's often me doing it. The comms are often run through WhatsApp, which is clunky and slow, and there's a lot of task switching. I like the novelty of it, and I like that we can have total control over the ecosystem, but it is also quite a difficult thing for people to grasp what has to happen next. So I'm also capped. I couldn't take more than, between us, we couldn't take more than about 8 people on that service. So our earning capacity is seriously hampered on that service. And actually it costs us quite a lot of money because we can't say yes to other projects. So that's the first thing I realised. Not all revenue is created equal. The second thing that I realised was that okay, this is going to be hard to tell you guys, but I am missing a trick, right? I knew that I wasn't that great with systems, and I knew that it was probably costing us something to not have a system around upsells, to not have systems around bumps, to not have systems around back-end processes to make offers on autopilot. I had no idea how much that was actually costing us. So when I actually broke it down, you should know, I have no system. It's maximum chaos. People get offered upsells whenever it naturally comes up in the conversation. If people are like, I had a fantastic experience on your social media package, the Dirty Dozen, and I've made we had a client speak to us this week who made an extra 10 grand in September. The natural thing there should have been, let me offer you support with emails and ads so that we can amplify that service. She's just on social media. And I didn't do that. And I left that call thinking we should have a system around this because we've proven value there. She's got some money to spend. And just because I don't have a system in place, it didn't occur to me to offer it, right? It's reliant on my memory. It's also reliant on the sort of the dynamic of the conversation for me to make the offer. That is costing us, based on the data, if I was to take the number of people, so 1 in 7 people ascend, right? That means they start spending some money with us and they end up buying something that's worth more money to us. 1 in 7 people do that. It's something like 14 point something %. That's happening just by accident. I have no system, have no process. I could be doing that after 30 days. Everybody gets the offer. I could be doing that on some sort of behavioural trigger. So when you hit this much ROI, then I make the offer. I'm not doing any of it. The industry standard for upsells going through a funnel is 20%. If I can get my 14% to 20%, that is worth an extra £54,000 a year that would pay for 2 members of staff. And when I realised this, I was kind of cross with myself because I thought my slackness around numbers is costing us money. It's putting my team in jeopardy. I should have been a better boss. But I didn't know to ask that question. And that sounds stupid, but I just didn't think of it. And that's the truth. And I'm logging this now at the start of Q4 2025 because I know that one day I'll be glad I've got this record to look back on a year from now when I know to ask much better standards of questions in my own business and I can see it objectively rather than emotionally. I will be a better business owner by having these logs. If I can go from 1 in 7 people to 1 in 5 people, that is worth £54,000 a year. With no new acquisition, no new spend, not changing anything about our offer suite, just literally putting a system and process in place around ascending people, either through time or through behaviour. I'm low-key embarrassed that I'm high-key embarrassed that I didn't do that. But that's the truth, and that's, we're all learning, right? So the next thing I learned was when I gave it all of my Stripe data, I said, I think this is going to be useful for coaches particularly. Where are my high points, hot spots, choke points, churn points? So what times of the year, let's normalize the undulations of finance, right? So I found some really interesting things on this, where Q1 for us is best for launches. Q2 seems to be Q2 and 3 seem to be a bit of a steady holding pattern, and then Q4, our guys really like to buy products, short-term spikes, maybe a Black Friday offer. That seems to be the pattern in our revenue. It tends not to be sort of subscription-based things in Q4. And so the advice that I've got here now is probably don't design Q4 promotions around big subscriptions where there's a significant outlay or onboarding of effort this side of Christmas. And I think it's such a valuable thing to have clarity around this in my own business, because it normalizes the ups and downs. When we get to, for us, it's often Q3, June, July, August seem to be pretty quiet. Or, yeah, it tends to be June, July, August rather than Q3. Because we work with a lot of people in the fitness industry, they tend to be very quiet in the summer, so we tend to be quite quiet in the summer. That would probably, in future, inform how we plan promos, launches, how we structure our stuff. And I just never knew that. And I've got 5 years of data to indicate what I should and shouldn't be doing based on those patterns. And I just literally didn't know. So going forward, we are going to change how we structure our offers. We've got 1 or 2 real core drivers. There was one service that I offer that I was thinking of just absolutely killing off. The data suggests I should not do that. I was looking at how we can structure offers to echo the way that we plan and deliver the things that are the most leverageable. So the things that we genuinely do right from scratch and they really are bespoke for somebody else, but how can we maximize the value that we give somebody else in that way, in a modern sense, in an AI era, in a Mounjaro, Ozempic era for our coaches? How can we be more useful, valuable, add more support and things to the execution of the plan? Guys, I gotta tell you, this has been an extraordinarily eye-opening, low-key, education in all of the things that I was doing wrong. I'm trying to meet this with humility. I feel foolish. I've been in business mentorships more or less since I started, and I just didn't know to ask these questions. I hope that I wrote a Substack article on it in more detail where I give step-by-step screenshotted instructions on how you can do this exact same thing in your business. And this is a list of questions with all of the answers stripped out so that you can see what we asked. You can adjust it for your level and your price points and your, the way your business is structured, and just simply swipe them. I've included these in the article. I'll put that in the description of this episode. Episode sounds so daft. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been a valuable breakdown. It has been humbling, I'll tell you the truth. But I've been running Kind Copy now for the last 5 years, and this excites me because I can only imagine, now that I can ask questions like this, I can only imagine what I'll be able to ask in a year's time. And in pursuit of being a better business owner, a bit better leader, better marketer, better writer, better person. That's been my huge, big lesson, not just from September, but honestly, this is probably the lesson of the year for me. Thank you for watching. If you like this episode, please do let me know. I would love to have your feedback. I've been schooled. I hope this is useful for you.